Well, what we got here is a 2000 Mazda Protege LX with a 1.6 liter engine. It's a little car I picked up to just to drive to work, save a little gas hopefully. Bought it real cheap, runs and drives good. A little rough on the outside, but overall, well, you know, we've had really good service with these cars, so when I saw an opportunity to buy another one at the right price, I jumped right on that. So it's got about 193,000 miles on it, and didn't really see any problems with it, except one thing I did notice I'm going to show you that has to be fixed right away is it's got a severe oil leak, and you can see since it's sitting here, it's got some drips and a big puddle here. It's kind of spread out and drips off the bottom of the engine, and where it appears to be coming from was pretty commonplace. You might can see there that the front of the oil pan is just washed with oil, and that's very likely coming from the front seal. Never mind the neighbors over there, but probably from the front seal or the cam seal, which unfortunately both those necessitate taking the timing belt off to access those seals. So that means we're going to do another timing belt job, and this is going to be getting them going, aren't they? This was going to be mainly just like the ones I did before a few years ago. If you've been following my channel, you know I did some videos series on a Protege timing belt swap, but what I'm going to do differently this time is try to do this more efficiently, meaning I'm going to clip them all together in just one or two parts instead of a bunch of them, and the process should be generally the same. This will be specifically on the 1.6 liter engine though, so those of you who wanted to see a series just on this engine specifically, then you should be pleased with this. So right, first thing we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to get my cleaner out, and I'm going to spray down this engine compartment and rinse all that oil that's thrown everywhere. It's everywhere. It's on the back here, it's back up here, it's all over the belts, so all over the front of the engine. It's dripping off the exhaust pipe, so it's really slinging a lot of oil out, so it shouldn't be hard to find the cause of that. So we'll get into this thing and get it taken down and see what we find. Okay, we're ready to continue with a timing belt change on this 2000 Protege 1.6 engine. And so what we're going to do next is we've got several things to do up top before we get underneath the engine and the car to work into there, so we're going to go ahead and knock those things out first. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to take off the valve cover, because on these the valve cover serves as the upper timing cover, so we need to do that. So we've got a few things to remove. We've got a PCV valve here, so we're just going to pull that out and swing that up out of the way. We've got another vent line, which is the fresh air intake for the PCV system. Just have a squeeze clamp here, just squeeze that, remove it. You're going to need to take off the coil packs and the plug wires. You've got two coil packs. These are 10mm bolts. Bolt here, bolt here, bolt here, bolt here. Take the wires off with it. What I did is, you can label these if you want to. It looks like somebody has previously marked those, but all I did is I just took my smartphone and just snapped a picture of this, so I know exactly how to go back together with it. And you're just going to take off the wiring harnesses also and get those out of the way for the coil packs. And you don't need to mess with this. This is for the fuel injectors. Just leave that alone. That's not part of that. And over here you have a this is a cam position sensor. I guess that's what this is going to be. It's going to be a bolt right here with a wiring harness. These wiring harnesses, all just connectors, just work the same way. This one just pulled right off actually, but they're supposed to snap on there. You just have to squeeze them on one side there that'll come off. And that should get it. That should be all you need to do that. And you're just going to need to do the bolts after that. Looks like these are 10s with an 8 mixed in with it. Not sure that's supposed to be an 8, but I think it's not. You've got one here, one here, one here, one here. There's one hiding under there, if you can see in there, but it's right down in the center, so don't forget that one, because if you do and you're trying to take this thing off, it won't come off until you break it. One here, here, and here. Now, there very well could be, I think I see one also hiding under that coil pack right there, so don't forget that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bolts on the valve cover, and then it should just come right off. And I'm kind of tell you right now, I'm kind of concerned about what I'm going to find when I get this valve cover off, because I see evidence of orange goop and some blue goop on this thing, some under there. So that tells me this engine's been apart already. I was told that the timing belt was replaced about 40,000 miles ago. What I guess happened was they put a head gasket on it 40,000 miles ago because it looked like it was having some problems with the cooling fans, and they probably overheated it and blew the head gasket. So anyway, that's something that this valve cover gasket uses. This valve cover gasket is a neoprene one-piece gasket. It's all one-piece molded, and the instructions specifically tell you when you put these valve cover gaskets on to not use any kind of sealer on them unless specifically noted. And in that case, it may be if you got a little corner or something. That's it. So I have no idea why people can't grasp that idea that you don't put sealer on there. So there should be no sealer on this valve cover. But it looks like there is. But anyway, as I said in the first segment, this engine has a really significant oil leak. So I've cleaned the engine up and got all the oil off of it now. So as we dig into it, we'll see what's going on with that. See if it blew a cam seal or a front seal or what happened to it. So, all right, guys. Well, let's get on with that, and we'll pick back up in the next segment. All right, valve cover's off. And here it is, exactly what I told you. Check that out. What is that? Yeah, and the time belt's got oil on it, just like I thought, which will ruin it real quick. And you can see it on the camera, but I can see kind of got a little bit on. It's not soaked, but that's not good for it. So it's not as bad as I thought, and it's loose. You can push down on it right there. You're not supposed to be able to do that. See how much that just deflects just with my fingers. We'll check that. It looks a little loose. Maybe it's not. So anyway, all right. So I guess I'll start picking that shit out of there. See ya. Okay, well, we got our valve cover off, and I've just laid a cloth down in there to kind of keep things out of the engine while we're working out here. And we're on to our next steps. And what we're going to do here is, first thing, now I'm doing a water pump on this car, so I've got the coolant draining out under here. And the drain plug is just simply under the bottom of the radiator, right in that area right there. And if you're not doing a water pump, then you don't have to even mess with the coolant. You can skip that step completely, because to suggest whether or not to do the water pump, if you've never known if it's been done, or you got a noise, maybe a little bit of a bearing noise or something coming out of this ends, or any kind of noise that doesn't sound right, it's probably best to go ahead and replace that. It's not that big of a deal to do it. Now on this car, the water pump runs off of just one of the accessory belts. That's the water pump pulley right there. But the thing is, you have to take the whole shebang apart to get the water pump out. So probably a good idea to go ahead and do that too. So we're going to on this car, and I've got a kit. I bought a whole entire kit that had that in it, so got a better deal on it. So the next thing we're going to do while that coolant is draining out is we're going to go ahead and loosen the bolts on that water pump pulley. That's 3 of them right there. They're 10 millimeter. And we're going to do that right now with the belts on it, because that'll kind of help give it some force to be able to loosen those bolts up. And sometimes what you can do is, if you just got a situation where you just can't get that thing loose, then you can take one wrench and use it to loosen with. Right, put it on like that, and then you take another wrench the same size and put it on and hold one of the other bolts the opposite direction, and they'll let you loosen at least 2 or 3 of them up, all but the last one. And then you say, well, what do you do with that last one? Well, what you do is you get to the last one, you leave the other 2 or 3, however many is in there, just back them out, and use your screwdriver or something, just kind of brace those bolts up so they won't turn, brace against something safe out here, and then you can pop that last one loose. And also at the same time, either before doing the water pump pulley or right after, you got a wiring harness that's right here, goes right across this timing cover, and it's connected up like that, comes from over here, and it clips in right there. That part clips in. It's got a little clip assembly here on the timing cover, clips right there, and then down in there, I've already taken that out, but there's a little retainer clip which clips in right there. So be gentle with those and get those apart, and also be careful with this dipstick. This is a plastic dipstick, so try not to break that off. Okay, then now that we've got the bolts loosened up on this water pump pulley, what we're going to do now is we're going to take the belts off. You have 2 accessory belts. There's one back to the alternator, and then there's one up here at the front, runs the power steering and the air conditioner. Now you may notice that the power steering belt is laying on the ground. That's because I went ahead and cut it, because I'm not going to reuse that. I kind of saved myself a step. Obviously, if you're going to reuse your belts, you don't want to cut those. But what we need to do in this step is we need to loosen these accessories up so that the belt will come off. And I think this car is missing an adjuster apparatus on this power steering pump. It normally would go, let's see if I can see, here's my light. I think it's supposed to have, let's see if I can get under here well enough to show you here. You see right here, if I'm in frame, there's a bracket, and then back here it's got a bolt hole, or a hole that looks like it's had something turning against it. I think that's where the adjuster's supposed to go for the power steering pump, which is that up there. That's the air conditioner there. The air conditioner's mounted solidly. As you can see, you don't have to take it loose or do anything with it. So don't do anything with it. Come back out here. I also think that car's missing its splash shield. You're not supposed to be able to get to the belts like that under there. I might be making a trip to the junkyard for some parts here. But okay, so the way this works is to get this power steering pump to pivot. Normally, like I said, I think you have an adjuster, and I'll show you more on that in a second, but the bolt is right here for that. Let me focus on that. That's the bolt right there. That's the pivot bolt. And the way you access that is the pulley has cutouts on it right there, so you can, like I said, you know, if you just want to take a shortcut and cut the old worn out belts off, that's fine, save a step. Normally you need to rotate the engine so you can access that with a socket and just loosen it up, and that thing will pivot like so. And then the alternator back here, I'll show you what I keep talking about, an adjuster. That's an adjuster right there, that thing. The threaded bolt in the bracket. I think that part's missing off the other one, but the way this comes apart is, the way it doesn't come apart, the way it loosens the tension on the belt right there is, first thing you're going to do is you're going to loosen this bolt right here. This is a bolt that tightens the alternator itself to the bracket. That one, that's a 12. And then you're going to loosen the adjuster, which is right there. That's a bolt. It's got a bolt head facing the firewall back right there. That's also a 12. So, like I said, you simply just, you know, they got to be loosened up regardless to put belts on or off. So you might as well just go ahead and do it that way. And then take your belts off. And then after that, we will probably go ahead and pull the water pump pulley off. Alright, well, this is why I always encourage people to watch the videos all the way through first before you start getting into this, because I made a little tactical error when I told you there was just 2 bolts on this alternator. That was wrong. There's a third one, which I was afraid of. It's all the way, it's a booger too. It's all the way opposite that one at the bottom, and the bolt head is on that end. So to make life a little bit easier for me, hopefully, I've decided to just go ahead and take this cruise control unit loose and just move it away. I'll show you how I did that. But there's just 2 plugs here that come out of it, and you have that here and that here and that down here. And the one actually at the bottom back down there, this one didn't actually have to come all the way off because that thing just slides out. I tell you, the Japanese, they're some engineers and a half. But anyway, get that back on there. That's what I'll do. I'll just put those back where they go. And then that one there back where it goes. That way hopefully I won't lose them, as I'm prone to do. And then that way I can get my hand back down under here and deal with that. See what my magic sizing fingers say. This is a 14. Let's see if this is it. Yes, yes, it is a 14. So just take your 14, put it on your wrench, your ratchet, whatever, drop it. Anyway, and loosen that thing up and it should swing forward, and take the belt off. And then we can take that water pump pulley off also. Found a couple, looks like there's a couple unidentified metallic objects in here. First one was right here. I don't know what that is yet. And then I think that I see a bolt right down. Focus on it there. And then in there, you see that? I think that's the head of a bolt. Oops, that there laying in there. Don't know what that's out of either. So we'll find out. Probably part of that adjuster. Righty then. Okay, looks like 5 bolts that hold on this upper timing cover. One right there. One back there. One down there. One right there, and that also holds on that bracket I showed you for that wiring harness. And one right back there. See right there. Oops, 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 oops. Right there. Right there. Should be able to take it off. I'll give you the end view of here so you can see where your bolts are. I think I mentioned this thing is a bad oil leak somewhere in here. So we get to see what's actually leaking. See some. I don't know if that's the piece I just dropped down in there or what. I see some more dummy glue in there, right there. Yeah, somebody. I'm humming to myself because I'm trying to see if they actually marked the marked something, but that ain't the timing marks. Timing marks should be that right there. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll verify that. I'm sure that's probably right though. But yeah, we got a bunch of oil in there somewhere, so it's either been coming down from the you got two cam seals up here. You got to take these wheels off, so we'll be doing that. Timing belt actually looks pretty good. They said it was done, so you can see part of the spring and all that down in there, tensioner and stuff. So, and tomorrow we'll see. Look at all that down in there. Look how oily it is. That's after I wash the engine. So we're gonna have to invest in a few cans of brake cleaner. Looks like. Yeah, well, okay. So tomorrow we will get going on the nitty gritty. Get the rest of this off here. So, alrighty, till then. Righty then, what we're going to do in this step is we're going to use our long extension torque arm here, and we're going to crack these bolts loose that hold these cam pulleys on. We're not going to take them off right now. We just want to use, that's why we still got the timing belt on. We want to use the resistance of the engine and the transmission and the car in gear to resist turning while we do this. We just want to break them loose while we got all this together, and then leave them be for now. I was going to use, this cam's got flats on it right here that you can use to put wrenches on, and if you saw in the other videos, there's a little trick. You can use 2 wrenches and then clamp them together, and a kind of a cam holding device. Well, somehow I either don't have the right size anymore or lost it or whatever, but I don't have the other one, so I gotta just use one hopefully. So I think it's gonna rain tomorrow, so I probably won't get any work done on this, so I'll probably go do that tomorrow or buy some more toolage. But so we'll just go ahead and see if this works and get these cracked loose here real quick, and be back at you. Okay then, that worked just fine. Came right loose. Got it loose there. So I'm just going to kind of snug it back up. Excuse me. It's cold weather again. And go on from there. So now we're going to go ahead, and we've got to work on getting the crank pulley off. So that's going to entail loosening the lugs a little bit while the car's on the ground. Of course, you got to take the hubcap off, and then get it jacked up, get the wheel off, make sure you put on jack stands, and then we'll pick up from there. Alright, well, the next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to break this crank bolt loose. So I've set up my special apparatus to use the starter to break that loose. I just have my impact socket and a shortest extension I can use, and some bracing, and bracing against the pavement, and we'll see if this works. You just want to just barely bump the starter and it should crack it loose. So we'll try that and see if it goes well. Alright guys, well, that worked great there. You can see my stuff's out of the way. I just bumped the starter and got under here and took, you can see the bolts loose right here. So all it took was just a little bit of a bump on the starter, and that's all you'll have to do. So, alright, on to the next step. We'll take that bolt out and get that pulley right off there. Alright, well, we're to the part we're going to have to take this motor mount off. So, get it out of the way. We've got a jack under the engine, jacked it up a little bit with a piece of wood between it and the oil pan. You don't want to bend up the oil pan. And then you just come up here and you got an assortment of nuts and bolts to take loose. Got a couple here. You got 1, 2, 3 right here, and there's a brace that runs to this thing right here. This is the brace. Just take those loose, and this will pull this part off. Get it out of your way. I don't know what that is. And see if we can pull this whole mount off. Mount's in pretty good shape. And then what we're going to have left to do is, I think we can take off this single piece that's bolted to the engine with those two bolts right there, because there's a bolt here. Hopefully that splits. We don't have to take this whole thing off, so let me do that now. Okay, bringing everything up to speed, I went ahead and pulled off this little part of the mount that I was telling you about. Just bolted right to the engine. You saw that in the last clip. So we got that off there, and then that allowed access to the lower timing cover, which is in two pieces actually. It goes around the water pump. So you got one bolt that goes in right there. As you're looking, this is if you look at the end of the engine, and then you have two more that go right there and there. So this thing is really greasy. So now that gives us access to the timing components. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and get the engine turned to top dead center, and make sure the marks are lined up, and go ahead and take the idler and the tensioner off, and the tensioner spring off, and they'll give us access to the water pump right there. So see you then. Once you have the idler and the tensioner taken off, just go ahead and slip the belt off. Voila! This belt was done fairly recently, so it's in good shape except for having some oil residue on it. So it probably wouldn't have been a problem, except like I said, it was just leaking so much oil, and there's a lot of evidence this engine has been fooled with, which is nothing new really, but looks like they didn't replace the water pump, didn't replace the idler, didn't replace the tensioner, just put a belt on it. So I think what's going on is we're going to get these cam pulleys off, but I think the oil is coming from up top up here, so we'll get those off and see what's going on back there. Alright then, so we're ready to pull these cam pulleys off, and like I showed you earlier in the video series, I went ahead while I had the belts all together and popped loose these bolts that hold them on are 14mm, and so now that I'm ready to take them off, all I did was, they weren't tight or anything. Your cam over here, each cam has a flat spot on it where you can put a wrench on it, and you can just, if you need to, you can just kind of hold that while you're doing your loosening maneuvers or tightening or whatever. And this is where, like I said, showed you a couple times, if you need to do the 2-wrench clamp together thing to hold the cams in place, you can do that with that. But be on your game when you're working in here about this, because you don't want to slip, damage the head, or mess up one of the lobes on the camshaft. So just be careful doing that. But I was afraid I was going to have to use a puller on these. I've heard stories about this, but these just come right off, and you just slip them off here, and you'll notice that, of course, no real way to get them confused. I mean, they're one side's deep and one side's shallow, but notice right here that these have an E, and then this one over here, lay that to the side there, this one here has an I in there. That stands for exhaust and intake. So remember, the exhaust is on the front, intake's back here. So alright then, well, we are going to proceed. I think today, we're supposed to get rain tomorrow, so I think what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to go ahead and take this last pulley off, and I'm going to work on cleaning parts up and cleaning this engine off in here, because this engine is filthy still. And looks to me like this is your cam cap right here. You've got 4 bolts that hold this thing on. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's right on the camshaft, and you're supposed to seal that up. And it looks like this thing has been goobered on with a bunch of sealer, so it doesn't so much look like the cam seal is leaking. That's the cam seal. You can kind of see it. That's the part that's acting right on the cam right there, that circular object that's around the outside of that shaft. So just at first glance, doesn't really look like that's what's leaking. Looks like it's leaking because of the blue glue. So somebody kind of just threw this thing together, I guess. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't know how long this engine will run if it's in that kind of shape. It ran good, so I don't know. But I'm going to fix it the right way. So what we'll do is once we get those wheels out of the way, we'll pull that cap off, and then the seals will be right in there with it. So you can just lift the old seals out with that. But what you'll do is you'll put the cap back on when it's cleaned up and put a little bit of the correct sealer, which I will show you coming up. Torque it down, and then you'll drive in your new seals from the outside. You don't want to try to put them all on together. And something of note back here, there's a couple plugs, usually just call them cam plugs, on this opposite side of the head. This is pretty tight, but this one was loose back here. So like it could just come right on out. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that out and reseal that, because you don't want to leak from there. So, and the reason why that this, I'm confident that the reason why this tends to leak like it is because that these cam journals, which are under here, this cam runs directly into the cylinder head. There's no bearings in it. But these cam journals are fed oil, of course, to keep everything lubricated, so there's oil pressure in there. So evidently they, well, for lack of a better word, didn't do it right. They effed it up. So putting all that, don't goober. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say this again. When you're a person that uses all this kind of blue glue and orange glue all over everything, that's a hack mechanic, man. That you define yourself as a hack forever. So don't do that. Anyway, we'll put it back together, and hopefully we won't have any more oil leaks. See ya. Alrighty, well, we got this filthy old dirty engine we've been working on, taking the timing belt and everything off of that. See all that oil? It's been going everywhere in here. Really nasty. So the first assumption a lot of people will make on something like this is they say, well, it's coming out of the crank seal. Well, I'm going to disagree with you, because if you come up here, you look at this, this is how you kind of figure things like this out. If you come up here up the engine, you start seeing there's a trail of oil on that. You see right there, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but right there, there is so much of a wash of oil right here that there's oil sitting there, and it's washed it clean. You can always tell when you got a big oil leak, because it'll wash, oil will wash off the engine. And then there's a little spot right there under that cam shaft that's got, see that seal's got orange crap coming out of it. Why on earth that they use two different kinds of sealer on this, I don't even know that, but that's what they did. And you look over there, and you see oh, the smoker, boy, he's been running the wheels off that truck. Guess he's having a good time, man. Toyota fever. Anyway, you see that big oil drip right under that camshaft? There's your oil. This in here is supposed to be totally 100% dry, like dusty dry. So any kind of oil, yeah, look at that. Where is that? Where did I see that? See, there's oil coming off of that. Any kind of oil in here is not good, because the timing, like I said, the timing belt lives in here, and you can't have a rubber belt with oil. So anyway, guys, you know, when you do work on stuff like this, if you have any inkling that you're not capable of doing it correctly, don't do it. Please don't do it. It just makes life a living hell for us actual mechanics.